Hi, we're back, and we're here today to put together what we feel is some historical memories, if you will, for the WCC nursing program, since we will be celebrating our 40th anniversary this fall. And who I have with me today are two additional program directors that we've had in our history. To my left is Teresa Nestoric, and on my right, Renee Stark. And as before, we're trying to capture those moments that have really made the nursing program what it is today, and a lot of that comes from our leaders. So, Teresa, you were with Washtenaw for 20 years.
20 years.
20 years, and you were served as department chair right in the middle of my two terms from 2003 and 2006.
Right.
And there's always some things that I believe that really stand out, but what comes to mind for you with WCC's history?
I remember it being a time of some new faculty, strong personalities, need for getting ready for an accreditation, and my ideas in regards to data collection, data systems, and those kinds of issues. I felt that the program was very strong in our community. We had, I believe at that time, a lot of strong clinical ties, and we weren't searching. That happened during and after, where things became a little more tight, just because of changes within the University of Michigan systems and that kind of thing. But overall, I felt I was in charge of a very strong program with a lot of students coming our way and a lot of people with really strong opinions about what was going on in the program being correct and knowing change was coming.
But back to that whole database piece, you really played a significant role in putting together through our IT department a way to capture significant student graduate data, and even today we still use those systems. So tell us about that process.
There was, I'm not a data person. We use the data, but I don't know how to collect the data nor put it, display it in a system. But we were between two systems. We had just lost our data person, who had created Kim, who had created much of what came to be, and I met with IT. I think the person I met with is now in charge of something. But anyway, at the time he was newer, very well read, very well educated, very easy to work with, and we tried to move that data into a newer system. My understanding now is that it's again moving into something else that would be more digestible, but I was trying to make it easier for all of us to access and in regards to student data, pretty much, where students were, if they had all of their health records in, and with the push of a button you could find all that. You wouldn't have to search in several different file cabinets. And I found it very helpful that it's still in place since 2006 is nice.
Yes, we definitely still have some forms for our annual reporting to our accrediting our agencies, our Board of Nursing. So yeah, that really was significant in at least what we're able to report to not only those agencies but also the community. So
good.
What about some of the partnerships, Teresa, that during your time?
There was an ongoing partnership with the University of Michigan. We had what we call the NERT program, Nursing Transfer Program. That was ongoing at the time. And then we were approached by St. Joe's to bring in, we were working again with a wait list. At that time was we had just transferred over to that, and they didn't want people who were candidates in their system to have to wait that long, because they wanted, those people had said they would work as nurses at St. Joe's, and they already knew those people, so they wanted to bring them into the system faster. So I can't remember if it was about 30, mostly young women, who we were able to try to fast track through the system. And it was sort of like an acrobatic kind of doing, because it was very difficult to bring more people in and to have them at different places in the system. So it was a lot of work.
But the other thing I think that with St. Joe's, they were a major clinical site back then.
Yes.
I want to say probably they had 4 or 5 clinical groups.
Yes.
And so I know in the past we've tried to partner more with our clinical sites as a way.
Right.
I mean,
To keep the clinicals ongoing.
right.
They valued us, we valued them.
Exactly.
Works all well.
Win-win. Win-win. And that was around that time. And I think the other thing too, and I had brought this up earlier, our advanced standing program.
Right.
Right around that time, we were seeing enrollments, or I should say applicants from within Washtenaw County decline.
Right, right, exactly.
And so that was inactivated, I think, during the time you were department chair.
Right. So the wait list came to be again, and in much the same respect as it had been previously, but it also brought the database back into the play, like keeping track of all the different particular data points that we would use to place someone on the data. I mean, you needed to keep the numbers clean. You needed to make sure that you knew how the number came to be based on did they complete this and that and another thing. So it had a lot more bearing on what I felt was my everyday responsibility, making sure I knew where everybody was.
Well, any other thoughts about what did you leave Washtenaw with? I mean, in terms of what did you see the program in the future?
I stepped aside and basically I retired several years later, but during the time that I was in that position as leader, and after that, it was the whole online format for teaching. And as with any huge change, it was nursing is very didactic, very very clinical, very hands-on, and it was a difficult switch. It was during a time when it was, well, should we or shouldn't we? Not everybody was, but this is sort of the wave of the future. So particularly for nursing, with its really didactic base, it was a difficult switch. But I think it was stronger because of the struggle. And the struggle was real. It was tough. But I think that's what I carry away.
Thank you so much, Teresa.
Yeah, no problem.
Now we'll shift our attention to Renee Stark. Now Renee has been with us full time since 2010. But Renee has a much different background. She initially took over coordinating our nursing assistant training courses on campus, as well as other things. And Renee served as department chair in 2014. So Renee, why don't you share some of your perspectives for WCC's historical.
Okay. Like Gloria said, my background was with the nurse aid training program. So I was kind of a fresh set of eyes when I came into nursing, looking at things from as an outsider would. And last year, a couple things that I identified were hot issues or issues the program needed to focus on was one, kind of rebuilding some of those community partnerships and relationships. I came on last summer, and when I had come on, we were actually short several clinical sites for fall. And we were 6 weeks out, so that was a little pressure. And so I just started making visits to some of the clinical partners we had in place. And some things have kind of evolved from that. For example, I went out into the VA hospital, met with some of the nurse educators out there, and they actually identified some gaps in their in-house training that they wanted Washtenaw to come help
Great.
and provide some training. So some things have evolved from that. And we did pick up some new partnerships last summer. We added the St. John's healthcare system, which is huge.
Right.
So they were able to accommodate several clinical placements for the fall. So that was good. And then the other piece is we are getting ready for an accreditation visit
Yes, we talked about that.
spring of 2016. And we were all very busy, all the nursing faculty in the department, we were all kind of busy managing what was right underneath our noses, the courses we were responsible for. And I think one of the things I identified coming in is the big picture was lost a little bit. So one of my goals last fall was to kind of create a shared vision of what we need to do as a program and the areas we needed to focus on so that we were in compliance with all the standards when our accrediting body came out for their visit. So we started kind of looking at each standard, and we had subcommittees looking at one standard, another group looking at another standard, and figuring out where we needed to focus our energies last fall. And that's continuing on.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Gloria.
Well, thank you, Renee.
So I tried to get the ball rolling in that direction and start really making good use of our meeting times. We historically, when we get together, we can talk about anything and everything, and we can switch from subject to subject really quickly. I'm sure that's always been the case, Teresa. But so really just kind of honing in on our priorities. What are the issues that can wait, and what are the issues that cannot wait? So that was a lot of my focus. Is just I felt like a triage nurse all over again. Just saying, okay, where do we need to put our time and energy, and getting us all on the same page so that we're productive and we're not spinning our wheels and going nowhere. So that was kind of my focus last year.
And I definitely saw that. And I think the other significant thing was that you brought, you were, that was such a passion of yours that you actually now are a program evaluator.
Yes.
So,
yes.
and that's huge. That's a huge resource to WCC in terms of what we need to do to continue our accreditation status.
Yes, I've done a few visits for our accrediting body, and what I realized, just so much, this is true of so many things, when you think you have an understanding of something, and then when you delve into it, you realize how big it really is and how much you still need to learn. And I think that's kind of what evolved from me making those visits, is I realized it was a very complex process. Accreditation's not simple, and it takes a lot of detailed eyes, and it's a very detailed process. And the truth is, I'm big picture. I'm not. My gift set's not being detailed. So having the whole team be a part of that, it's imperative. It cannot work with just one person. And it's not meant to work that way.
Right.
The standards, the accrediting standards are set up so that it is a team approach
Right.
with constant reevaluation of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and is it working, much like the nursing process. What's really interesting is one of the things I realized as we were working through getting prepared is the process works. It makes you look at what you're doing,
Right.
and it makes you better for having to do it. We do it, of course, we want our program to be excellent, but we tend to just do what we have to do some days because it's hard. Running a nursing program is very difficult, but you have to make time to make sure your processes are in place, that you're evaluating it. And accreditation forces you to stop and take the time to do that and make that a priority. So I kind of appreciate the whole thing a little bit more now. Before it was just kind of a pain, something we have to do, but now I realize the importance of it as being a program evaluator and walking into our program and seeing the gaps where we are not meeting those standards. And so, but I think we're on the right path now.
And I think your vision has trickled down to where people, it's been a brutal summer, but they see, as you said, the benefits of going through and critically looking at every part of the program to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
Renee, what do you see as the direction of the program?
That's a good question. One of the other things I did over my short term in the position is I started attending some larger meetings with other community colleges just to I wanted to get a feel for where the programs were going across the nation. Are we relevant? Are we current? And I see down the road there being more of a core curriculum. I know that's not a real popular word because of the standards better. Standards better. And more of a standard curriculum. I see the majority of the programs in our area, including ours, decreasing the credit hours required. That's a big push right now. So I see some standardization coming that is going to come from a higher level, that's going to be mandated, that we have to get on board with. And just making sure everything's evidence-based. That's it's been kind of a hot phrase for a few years now.
That's where the database comes in.
Yeah, and making sure that we have evidence that the way
Right.
we're educating and what we're doing does work.
Right.
And if it doesn't, then going back to the drawing board and figuring out what could work or what will work.
And I just hope too always that we keep in mind what our vision is, or how the community views us as
Yes.
a high quality program.
Right.
And that's always been, even since I've been here, one of the biggest things is that the community recognizes WCC's nursing program and would rather hire our graduates than others. And I think that speaks to the quality of our instruction.
Yes, and to kind of segue from that, I heard a lot of positive feedback in the short time I was in that role with the community partners I did visit.
Mm-hmm.
They love our graduates, and that was like music, hearing that. And the graduates do feel confident that they are educated and trained to be able to go out there and do the job that they are being hired for. The other thing too, reflecting back onto where our program's going or the ways of the future, also the BSN piece, which we've talked about several times, and you may have already mentioned this.
Right.
But now that we are partnering we have another partnership starting with EMU to get more BSN graduates out the door. That'll help with our clinical placements as well, because our clinical sites really want BSN students in their facility because they want to hire BSN graduates. So I think we're being proactive as a program. I think we're looking at those things. We're making changes to align ourselves with what our community wants. And that's exciting too, to see us kind of going in that direction and just jumping in, because it's scary. Change is scary. So I think we're doing some wonderful things.
I do too. Okay. Well, thank you both for coming and sharing your thoughts, your perspectives in celebration of our 40 years of serving the community. Thank you.
Thank you.